There is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and a half. Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a persuasive speech to persuade you about something. So at least I'll have to find out what it is. So the book of Maccabees is a primary source for the story of Hanukkah, and the book tells the story of the great oppression against the Jews. The first of the two books of the Maccabees begins with telling us about how King Antiochus started a campaign against the Jews. He leaves Jerusalem, and then 2 years later he returns. The book of Maccabees in 129 says, 2 years later, the king sent the Mysian commander to the cities of Judah, and he came to Jerusalem with a strong force. He spoke to them deceitfully, and they believed him, and he attacked the city suddenly in a great onslaught, and destroyed many of the people in Israel. He plundered the city and set fire to it, demolished its houses and its surrounding walls, and took captive the women and children. I would like to bring an idea said by Rabbi David Foreman from aleph-beta.org, going back to the first part of this quote. Who's the person that did all of this damage? It was the Mysian commander. The Mysians were soldiers from the Turkey-Arabia area, so Asia Minor, and it seems that King Antiochus has hired him to make war against the Jews. I'd like to bring a suggestion that perhaps this text isn't quite so accurate, and hopefully convince you of it. So the translation that we use is a modern translation, and it isn't exactly, it might not exactly be the proper translation from the original Hebrew. Fortunately, we don't have the original Hebrew translation or text of it, so the closest thing we have is the Greek translation of that original Hebrew. So now I personally can't read Greek, but there is an older King James version of a translation of this Greek. In the King James Version, it says that the king sent not Mysian commanders, but tax collectors. So if you read it like that, the text says that the king sent tax collectors to the cities of Judah, who spoke peacefully to them, but all in deceit, and then they started to destroy the city, taking the spoils, took the women and children captive, and made you build a fort to store things afterwards. So just imagine some IRS guys walking into the city, throwing bombs and grenades all over the place, killing half the people, and taking the women and children to be sold as slaves. So now you can see why the modern translation might have been changed, because that doesn't make any sense. So I like to convince you that it actually does make sense. So Harrington, who's the modern-day expert on the book of Maccabees, he admits that the Greek translation of the text actually does say tax collectors in it. But he believes that the Greek translator actually translated it from the Hebrew wrongly. The Hebrew word for tax collectors is mem samech yod mem, with the vowels pronounced it sarei misim, tax collectors. If you were to change the vowels around, the word would read sarei musim, or Mysian officers, which would make sense with the context. What I like to suggest, with the help of Rabbi Foreman, is to suggest that the Greek translator actually did not get the word wrong. It really should be sarei misim, tax collectors. The whole series of events sounds a little familiar. Where have we seen a similar series of events in the Bible, where the ruler sends tax collectors to the people, where they first speak peacefully, but it was all deceitfully. They started to destroy your homes afterwards, and then they took you as slaves and made you build storage places. This sounds almost exactly like the first oppression to the Jews in Egypt. Sarei misim were the very first original oppressors in the Egyptian exile. The verse says in Exodus 1:11 that Pharaoh originally sent tax collectors to oppress and convince the Jews, but it was all in deceit, as you can't just take peaceful people and just slave them randomly. You have to plan a deceitful way to enslave and entrap them. First, Pharaoh started putting heavy taxes on the Jews and slowly added other means of attack. And before they knew what was happening, they became slaves. It seems that the author of the Maccabees was trying to tell us a similar experience happened much later to the Jews in Judah. It started off with simple taxes, but before you know it, you had people becoming slaves. Although these aren't the only two parallels in the story, in the two stories, I do hope that this gives you a little different perspective on the story of Hanukkah and convinces you to look at it in a different light.